Welcome to the What Do You Stand For podcast.
Hey, everybody. Welcome to the What Do You Stand For podcast, the place where emerging leaders in hospitality come to be informed, inspired, and transformed. My name is Arthur Keith, and I am proud to be the host of the podcast. And I'm joined here today by three members of the squad, DJ.
What's up, yo?
Jerry.
Glad to be here today.
And Colin.
How are you?
And then today we're going to unpack the topic of what does it mean to be light when you enter the room?
Interesting.
Why is it that what do you stand for leaders choose to be light when they enter the room? Let's kick it off with a question. Colin, tell me something. How do you bring your best self every day?
Oh, that's an awesome question. I think that it's challenging. I'm not going to lie, right? To bring your best self every single day. But I think I look at it in terms of I am always a role model. If I'm not bringing my best self, or if I'm not bringing my best game to the table, it can't work, right? I can't be a role model and be a cranky old curmudgeon. Although as I get older, I might be becoming that cranky old curmudgeon.
Yeah. So are you trying to tell me there are times though when you're a cranky old curmudgeon? Is that?
Come on, you know exactly what a curmudgeon is. You are an old curmudgeon too. But yeah, of course, I'm a human being, right? And it's so interesting as we continue to go down this podcast and we talk about people managing people, right? You can't forget that we are people too.
Yeah, exactly.
And there are times in our lives when not everything is wine and roses. And I think in my career, I would hope that I've created such a relationship with my team that when I was not cheerful or I needed my own moment or I needed to just not be the cheerleader of the time, that my team understood that and somebody else could step in.
Right.
And I can't think of a time when that didn't happen. I believe that as a leader, you want people to look at you for the positivity to make it happen. It's not possible all the time.
Yeah.
And you have to recognize when you're not. Something interesting that somebody told me along the lines of, you don't want to be a leader where your team members have to manage your moods.
Exactly.
That's good.
Right? You don't want to be a leader where the team members have to manage what your moods are. If I am in a not so positive mood, my team members shouldn't have to say, oh, well, Colin's in a bad mood. Let's not talk to him about this today, right? My mood has to be vanilla most of the time. It can be vanilla to more positive, but it can't be vanilla to cranky. Right? They can't see me in a cranky mood, but it happens.
You use the word vanilla, which I found myself kind of reacting to that. Vanilla isn't necessarily a bad thing. If you're consistent and it's a certain energy level, and if your team knows and recognizes that's who you are and that's how you lead and you're consistent, that's better than coming to work every day as instead of vanilla, I'm gonna use an ice cream analogy, rocky road. There's no telling what they're gonna get in each bite or in each conversation. That's really disruptive. So coming to work and being intentional and recognizing that there will be some rocky road days. I think the thing to share and for our listeners to understand is there are going to be some rocky road days. Absolutely. And when those happen, you need to be aware of it and do things to minimize the impact of those rocky road days that you may be having. And I love, Colin, you mentioned that you had people around you, you built a team where you kind of propped each other up when needed or someone else stepped in. I think there's huge power in that. And that's something you created as a leader, which is great.
Yeah. And I think that it's important, right? Your team should know you for who you are. And listen, I often look at myself as I want to be the most positive person in the room, right? That's what I would like to be. Like, that's a goal of mine, but it doesn't always happen, right? And whereas I wear my emotions on my sleeve, it's even harder when I'm not in a good place. But I think that if you build a strong team, right, and a lot of the other things that we talk about in a lot of the other episodes, if you're able to build a strong team around you, when I say strong team, not necessarily like they're all the best leaders in the world, but like they all, like you just said, have each other's back, right? You all recognize each other and you all are comfortable with each other, that people can step in and support you. If they're not feeling it today, that I can take the leadership role for them or take the positive role for them, because nobody wants to go to work. Let's just call it what it is, right? So we want to make work the best environment that we possibly can,
Right.
because it's still work.
Yeah.
Right. And it's much better to go to a place where you enjoy. This just sparked another memory that I just kind of want to share real quick. I interviewed for a front office manager job at some point along the line of my career. And the front office the director of front office or whatever, I don't know, the person who was going to be above me explained to me that they don't want to have a front desk with anybody who's not ready to be out there. And they would much rather have less people that are ready to be out on the front desk and take care of guests than anybody who wasn't up for the task that day. And they'd rather run short staffed, which I just found very telling about the culture that they wanted to create. Right. It's very important to make sure that the front desk staff, the front of the house, was really taking care of the guest that was in front of them. And if you weren't ready to do that, it was okay. Like, you could go home today and have that sick day, because we'd rather have you at full speed than not. And I found that, I always think of that as a good lesson.
Now I see that on the level of a front desk, but what if you're the leader and you're having a bad day?
That's a really interesting question. When I was younger, I would have said, no, you muscle it out. Now I would tell people, having more experience under my belt, it depends on the level of where you are, right? If it's just, I'm cranky today, normal, ordinary cranky, then I would say that you have a role to play and you have a job to do, and you absolutely have to live up to the expectation and be the leader in that case. If there is a lot going on in your life, there's no reason to have you there.
Yeah, you're absolutely correct.
And actually, I feel the same way about being sick. And I know that this is contrary to everything that we learned growing up, but it's even more important now in the COVID world, right? But I don't believe that anybody should come to work when they're sick.
Right.
And not even about spreading the disease, right? But about taking care of yourself.
Yeah.
But I do remember hundreds of times, right? Maybe even thousands of times of me being upset when somebody called sick.
I think we all been there too.
I think we were told it's kind of a badge of honor. I'm sick, I'm running a fever, I'm coughing, but I'm at work. I'm dedicated, I'm committed. Forget the fact, you're not at your best and you're infecting the whole team. And
and think about it now, right? Because we've just gone through the last 12 months, right?
Yeah.
Coughing into your hands at that time, right? And then touching the keyboard, and then who touched the keyboard behind you, and the telephone, and oh my goodness.
Right.
But no, back to your question, or back to the answer to your question, I think that a leader has a different expectation. They're there to lead their team, so they do have to muscle through it.
Yeah.
Until you get to a point where you're not going to be effective. And then you should not be there if you're not going to be effective.
I love the fact that you're saying leaders do carry some responsibility for being in tune with the other leaders and supervisors around them to make sure that they're bringing their best self. And if they're not, that should be a conversation.
Right.
Yep. Yeah. Interesting.
Yeah.
What a great topic. So I'm really curious. Like, you said that the vanilla rubbed you the wrong way. Why?
Well, sometimes when I hear the word vanilla, I think bland, right?
Yeah.
Where vanilla, actually, this is funny because my favorite flavor of ice cream is vanilla.
Good.
All right. So it's really to me, it's not a bland flavor, but I found myself reacting to that. And I guess this kind of talks, if you're an emerging leader and you have a belief that you need to be this big, outgoing, outspoken, gregarious type of leader, charismatic, those are all words I would say are something above and beyond being vanilla. You can be very effective as a leader without having the biggest personality in the world.
Right.
And there are some very, very, very good leaders who are maybe viewed as vanilla, but they're dependable. They're there. They support the people. They give people direction.
Exactly.
They have a vision. They share it, but they do it in a way and they present it in a way where it's not big and in your face and bold. It's more vanilla.
I agree with everything you just said. And I think that you summarized what I really meant very well, right? You have to be consistent, right? You have to be a consistent leader, and you should always have the consistent mood. And that's kind of what I meant by vanilla.
So, Jerry, how do you shift when you're having a bad day as a leader?
I think that self-awareness is key. When you're not at your best, let's say you're just having a bad day, and you have to first acknowledge to yourself that you're having a bad day. Your moods rule you. You don't rule your moods.
Yeah.
Once you've acknowledged that, hey, I'm not in a great mood today, and I really want to change that, you have to be determined to say to yourself, hey, I'm not going to let this affect my job and the job of the folks I'm leading today. When you acknowledge that you're having a bad day, remember that it's important for you to begin with the end in mind and say, I don't want this day to end on a bad note. So therefore, I need to shift. You're the boss. I know we don't like that word boss, but you're the boss of your emotions. They're not the boss of you. choose specific actions. When you're in a bad mood, sit down and you already have acknowledged, now you're taking responsibility, making a decision what you want it to be. Now you have to set some action items for yourself. So, for example, you're going to praise every single member on your team. Even if you don't feel like it, you're going to find something good. And number 2, you're going to smile at everybody you pass. I mean, find something that you can do that can shift your mood.
I love how you shift it. If you're having a bad day, go seek to do something positive, because that will, in essence, get you back on track. I truly believe that. The other thing that I would add, if you're having a bad day, it's probably not the day to do certain things. It's probably not the day to sit down and give somebody an evaluation. It's probably not the day to if it can be avoided, deal with difficult situations, because your emotions are just going to pulling a tough situation on top of your bad day. To me, it just compounds, and I've seen it happen to me. I found myself, if I was dealing with an upset guest when I was not having a good day, there was a mean streak in me that would come out in response. At times kind of scared me and frightened me, because when it happened, I remember saying to myself, ooh, where did that come from? I didn't mean to come across like that. You talked about self-awareness. Absolutely. If you're aware of what's going on, where you're at, if you're having a bad day, I believe it's okay to cancel. If you need to cancel some meetings, shift some meetings, and just make sure you don't put yourself in a situation where you may say or do something.
I agree 100%. Yeah. If you can't shake it, shift it. You have to sometimes be a little distant. You have to make yourself busy that day and not do people-oriented things, because you can spend a year really doing something well, and it can take you 10 minutes to just destroy it, with what comes out of your mouth.
Yeah, no, you're right. If I was having a bad day, I would carry it on my face and my expressions. And even though I wasn't necessarily saying anything, people would look at me and they could tell. They would avoid me.
Right.
Yeah,
right.
That being light when you're in a room, it can be absolutely felt without you even saying anything.
Yeah, all of us light up a room, some when we enter and some when we leave.
Right.
So which one do you want to be? You want to be that person that lights up a room when you enter. And let's be honest, you're not always going to be able to do that when you enter a room. There's going to be situations where you're dealing with a challenge of some sort, and you got to go in and handle that. It's just trying to do it in a positive way if you can.
Love it. Love it. The room lights. You want the room to light up when you enter it, not when you leave it. So, when you think about the behaviors and attitudes that you want to see in your team, how important is it in your eyes that leaders model that?
I think that teams need consistent leadership, like I said, and they also need guardrails. So if you want to keep the environment on a great vibe, you also have to lead them with a cadence of accountability. And so giving them guardrails is super important, because when you don't have guardrails, moods can shift all over the place all of the time, and it can be on a whim. So if you want it to be consistently light, consistently, just set that clear intention about what you're doing and what you expect from them as well. And I think also outlining in advance, Arthur, what's important and what's acceptable.
Yeah.
And so you have less folks that go off the deep end, if you know what I mean, once they know kind of what's accepted and what's not acceptable in the organization. I know that doesn't sound like it goes to, be the light in the room, but it really does keep a consistent glow. At the very least.
I love how you said the word consistency and consistent. And I think that's a big part of it too. Being around leaders, if you don't know who's going to show up that day, if you don't know if you're going to get the happy Arthur, the crazy Arthur, the intense Arthur, that puts people on edge. And it's hard for the team to be at their best if, as a leader, you're not consistent.
Well, I think everybody's heard the cliche, the golden rule. Is really about treating people the way you want to be treated.
Absolutely.
And basically practice what you preach.
Right.
You want them to have great behaviors, then you should have a great behavior. And then also making sure that you have a level of trust where you're able to point out different things or issues with those colleagues or employees or whomever it may be, that you're able to have heart to hearts and talk about the issues. You have to be able to have an environment or culture where you allow yourself to be truthful with one another.
Yeah, we've been talking now about how leaders impact and deal with marginal performance or low performing individuals. And this whole concept of be light when you enter the room, I think one reality that leaders need to understand is when you enter the room, it's not just you that's entering the room. It's your perception as a leader is influenced by those around you or those on your team and how others view them as well. And if you as a leader are managing a team that's viewed as just being low performing or difficult to deal with, or just having a bad attitude, when you enter the room, you're carrying those perceptions with you, and other people are going to view you through that lens. So on some levels, it's tough being a leader because it's not just what you bring individually.
Exactly.
You're also viewed as a reflection of your team.
Correct. That's correct. I would totally agree. We want to make sure that we're really focusing on it's humility with dignity and humbleness with pride.
Brilliant.
And making sure that you're recognizing your entire team for their accomplishments, specific behaviors and things, and praising them in front of their peers and building them up. You got to be that cheerleader. You got to be that one, because you can either be the person that, there's Daryl coming in. Oh, shoot, here he comes. Going to suck the enthusiasm out of the room. Or it can be, hey, there's Daryl. He's in. Oh, man, he's a cool person. He's good people. He's always got something kind to say. You have a choice whether or not to be happy or sad. You have a choice.
I love it. We're going to wrap it up on that. You have a choice. You have a choice. And then what do you stand for? Leaders understand and recognize that they have a choice, that they have the ability to be light when they enter the room, and they choose that over being darkness when they enter the room or seeing the room perk up when they leave. And I do want to close it out by thanking DJ, Colin, and Jerry for joining me.
What a great topic.
Also, our listeners out there, don't forget to go to arthurkeith.com, look for the Ask Arthur tab. Please go find that tab, and there you can write and share information, any questions you may have, or any topics that you want us to consider in the future, and connect with us there. Once again, we thank you all and look forward to connecting with you in the future.
Look for us on Instagram, Facebook, Twitter, and LinkedIn. Find the links on arthurkeith.com. What do you stand for?